So rather unusually for Scotland, the sun is shining, I've got a day off work, so I thought I'd take you guys out game hunting. Well, not just game hunting, but other cool stuff hunting too, and if you want to see where I went and what I got, you just wait until after these. Now, unlike many video game hunting videos that you've likely seen, this won't start with a car montage. There's going to be no long highways or streets or anything like that for me, because one of the beauties of living in a city like Glasgow is that we have green areas everywhere, and not only that, we have the ability to walk just about everywhere in the city. Now, there are areas of course where we would have to drive to get to, or maybe take public transport. For the most of it, and especially from where I live, I'm fairly blessed with the ability to walk just about anywhere I need to go, because right across the street from where I live is this wonderful river pathway that leads straight to Glasgow's fantastic West End shopping area. So I apologise to everyone who was expecting a high-rise building flashing by at 70 miles per hour while I make my way to my local shopping area and force upon you the majesty of some of the wonderful areas that we have in Glasgow, which are literally a stone's throw away from anywhere that you live in the city. Now, I can't speak for you personally, obviously, but this really does set me up for a good day's shopping. I haven't been stuck in a sweaty car for maybe hours on end. I haven't had the stress of using public transport. Just a gentle walk through some beautiful nature, recharging the batteries and getting me ready to spend some money on some wonderfully cool stuff. Well, hopefully anyway, because you can't guarantee anything when you go out hunting, especially vintage video games. And before too long, the walk comes to an end and it ends at the absolutely fantastic Glasgow Botanical Gardens, which is a landmark for me to get both excited and a little bit nervous, because I'm about to hit Byres Road. Now, Byres Road, for anyone who doesn't know Glasgow, is one of the main shopping areas in Glasgow's West End, and not only is it just a shopping area, there's plenty of cafes and bars and nightlife. It's also the hub of student activity when it comes to Glasgow. So the range of facilities that you have going down this one fairly long but just one street is quite remarkable, and it's where I tend to do the majority of my video game hunting when I come into the city centre areas. And probably one of my favourite aspects of the street is it isn't littered with big name brand outlets. Rather than being assaulted by the constant procession of high street stores, the same generic stores that you see time after time, on Byres Road you're more likely to stumble across the unusual and slightly quirky boutiques. There's a host of charity shops on the street, or Goodwill as you might call them in North America, and if you're looking for something just a little bit odd, then I can heartily recommend taking a trip down to the West End and down Byres Road, because there really is something for everyone down here, guaranteed. And probably one of the most quirky areas in the whole of this street is Downside Lane, which we're just about to turn down to now. And in Downside Lane we have some wonderful little boutiques. I am going to be stopping in at some that not everybody will want to watch, but I do feel there are a few people out there that will quite like some of the places that you can find down here. And the first of these places is Starry Starry Night. Now, Starry Starry Night is a vintage clothing and accessory boutique, and I know there's a few people out there like Lady Lacey from Do You Nerd, and Jen from Retro Rivals, and of course Mary from A Co-opal of Nerds, who would absolutely love to spend a good hour or so browsing through some of these vintage accessories, vintage clothes. And I know it's not for everyone, because no, I'm not going to find any video games in here, but just some of the fantastic throwbacks from history that you see in this boutique. Well, I thought it was worth stopping in, just so the people who might like to have a look at it can get a quick glimpse of it before I go full on video game hunting. And also the good lady is with me today, so I've got to make a few pit stops here and there that will keep her happy. Don't get me wrong, she does like her video games too, but I don't think she's just as full on crazy as me for it. After Starry Starry Night there's two more stops I'm going to be making in Downside Lane, and the first one, well, it's Relics, which kind of suits me because I'm a relic myself. Now this is an interesting place because this has everything, and everything from just about every era. Now you're having a look at outside the actual store at the moment, where you see piles upon piles of just about anything that you could want to own. Now yes, this does look like junk, and a lot of it is junk, but amongst that junk, if you dig deep enough, you can get some hidden treasures. And today, as you can see, there's some media in there. Not only media, we have some video games hidden in boxes. Now the prices of these video games are £1.50 each, and I will pop up some conversions to other currencies, but just getting some what I would call more modern video games in this particular store was quite a treat. Normally when you're browsing through Relics, you're finding things like Atari 2600 or ColecoVision, really old stuff that the owner has managed to pick up, but on very rare occasions like this, we have some modern gaming. I suppose I know PS2's getting retro now, and of course there's a host of other stuff that you can dig through in this boutique. But you really do, you need to go in like an archaeologist, you need to go in with your shovel and dig through everything. Everything is piled upon other stuff, and if you have the time to root through it, you really can find a gem or two in here. From extremely old vintage toys to guitars, record players, books, you name it. If you want something, especially something vintage, well, you're going to find it in Relics. And it must be an absolute dream place for someone who's maybe making a film or having to dress a set for something, because just the variety of not only the items but the era that these items come from is absolutely gobsmacking at times. And I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, when I'm in here it's hard not to blow your budget that you've set aside for video games on buying something that's just so ridiculously cool, like a vintage record player or picking up a new guitar. But today the games are the focus, and that was all they had. Now straight across from Relics you have City Centre comics, and I'm not a big comic guy, but they do look cool, and I love those Deceased, the DCeased, that's quite a cool wee play in words, and did a whole host of other comics and action figures out front. I didn't go into the shop, didn't want to spend anything, but I did notice the shirts outside, and yes, one shirt in particular did seem to be peeking out at me, and I kinda sorta regret not picking that up now. And just as I was about to leave, this little guy popped up his head and said, "Quick, have a look at me first." Now I suppose technically a Rubik's Bear, which I've never seen before, is a game of sorts, but not quite a video game, regardless of how absolutely cute he is, so had to sit him back down there. So heading back onto Byers Road, and obviously the shiny red car caught my attention, and I'm walking past all these street cafes, and I'm starting to think about a pit stop just to get the energy levels back up again. And then of course the pub also beckons me. I'm absolutely positive it said, "Come on, just for one." But I managed to stay strong, and I was rewarded with my strength for walking past the pub, because the next charity shop did have some games in. They didn't have a great selection, but there were a few titles in there that did catch my attention, and you'll just have to wait to see if I picked any up. And after leaving that charity shop, I'm assaulted by more images of food, and I'm getting hungry, but I need to truck on. I need to find at least one more charity shop that will have some games in, and the last one did pay off again. Now unfortunately it was only PC games, there were no games for consoles in here, and it was a lot of the same stuff. Don't get me wrong, I do like PC gaming, I do PC game, but not usually from this era. I tend to stick more in the early 90s, maybe even late 80s, DOS games and very early Windows 95 games when it comes to PCs. They did however have quite an interesting selection of Star Wars games there, Dark Forces 2 and Mysteries of the Sith, so it wasn't all just shovelware, like that whole host of Sim add-on discs. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the Sims, because I loved the original Sims game back in the day. I just found it a bit too much when there was add-on after add-on pumped out there for people to spend money on for no real reason. So slim pickings in the last shop of the day, so I headed back to Sugarfall Patisserie, because those cakes that I passed by earlier, they were just screaming at me. So I went in, and if you think these things look good, well, you've got to taste them. They were absolutely fantastic, and what a way to end the day. And if you want a rating of just how good these little desserts were, well, here we go. I'm going to give them a clean plate rating, because I absolutely ate every morsel that was set in front of me. Now, I didn't eat it all myself, my good lady was there to help me share, but they were fantastic and gave me the energy to head back home. So I hope you all enjoyed that little trip down Glasgow's West End, and especially down Byres Road. It's an area where I do a fair bit of game hunting when I get the chance in Glasgow, which is, to be honest with you, not often enough these days, but I do need to step up my game. Now, from the footage you probably noticed that the pickings were quite slim today, but there were one or two items that I did have to pick up when I was out there. And the first one, well, it was Civilization 4 for the PC. Now, it's not a big important game for my collection. I'm a gamer more than a collector, and I do want to play this. I don't think I played Civilization 4 back in the day. I think it was a bit later on for me. My PC gaming, as I've explained before, is mostly late 80s and early 90s DOS, or maybe, just maybe, Windows 95 based. But Civilization 4, looking forward to playing it. It's not a big collection game, but yes, it's something that I want to play. Now, next up was one of the games that came from the wonderful Relics, and that was Devil May Cry, and there was no way I was going to pass this up. I don't have the Devil May Cry games in the collection yet, and they're an important part of the PlayStation 2 collection. So Devil May Cry at £1.50, I wasn't going to knock that back, and I was so glad it was out there for me to see and pick up today. And lastly, from Relics, well, that's probably going to take you by surprise, or maybe not, but I picked up Bratz Rock Angels. Now, the reason I picked this up is not because I want it, not because I want it in my collection, it's just these Brat games for some reason are going through the roof in prices. Now, hopefully they'll dip back down. I got this one for £1.50, and out there at the moment, this is going for about £8 to £10, which is absolutely ludicrous. But when I saw it at that price, if I'm picking it up, it might not be for the collection, it might be for trade fodder. It did come complete with everything that came with it originally, so quite happy to get that for £1.50, which, well, maybe not the deal of the day, but it was certainly one of them. Now, something else that I picked up when I was out there was something that I don't normally pick up, and that's a DS game. But when I saw this little boy here, and what is it? It's Combat of Giants Dinosaurs. I just thought, you know what? I've got my DS there. I play it from time to time, mostly for GBA at the moment. But when you see a complete copy of a game out there, and this again was just a couple of pounds, I thought, no point in not picking that up. So that's a DS game, Combat of the Giants Dinosaurs, into the collection, and kinda looking forward to playing that one. So now coming up is the star of the show, and the eagle-eyed out there amongst you would probably have noticed this selection of games as I was panning across some of the games that I saw when I was out there in Byres Road. These are the oldest games that I picked up yesterday anyway, and what a selection, that's all I'm going to say, because the games that I saw were for the ZX Spectrum, games from back in the early to mid 80s. And the first one in the bundle, and let me tell you, every one of these games came from a bundle of 3, and they were priced at £3.99, and at £3.99, well, you can do the maths yourself, but that means they were, what, £1.33 a piece. And the first one is Coder M2. Now, this is not a game, this apparently is a program that turns basic programs into machine code. Now, that's something for someone else, because as much as I could program a little bit of basic back in the day, machine code was well out of my scope of experience. But it's an interesting little tape, and you know what, if anyone out there knows about this, is interested in this, well, leave me a message, because this might be of great interest to someone who's still interested in programming basic and machine code on the ZX Spectrum. And next up in the bundle, for a bunch of games that cost me £1.30 odd, it's just nuts. we have Bridge Player. Now, I wasn't a big Bridge player back in the day, I'm not a big Bridge player now, but it was part of a bundle. It was absolutely cheap as chips, and I'm not going to complain at £1.30, not for any ZX Spectrum game, not at all, not in the slightest. Now, there were of course a couple of loose games amongst that bundle, not loose as in loose cassettes out by themselves. They were in cassette cases, but just not with their original box art. And the first of that was Handicap Golf 1983. Haven't played Handicap Golf, and I do like a good golf game, even on the ZX Spectrum. World Class Leaderboard was a game that I played for hours on end at the time. So Handicap Golf 1983, I'm definitely going to give it a try and see just how good it is. Another one that I didn't know about that came loose was Ghost Hunters. Again, as I said, it's a game that I've never played, I've never experienced. It's from, well, the mighty Codemasters, and anyone who knows the ZX Spectrum era or the Commodore 64 era will know Codemasters for, well, sometimes putting out some of the most common shovelware that you got in the ZX Spectrum, but some classic games too. So Ghost Hunters, loose cassette I suppose, but still happy to get it for £1.33. Now, if anyone sees any of these loose cassettes and they're interested in them, I'll be more than happy to, work out something for sending them on to you. Just let me know. Now, the next one is BMX Simulator, as the case falls open there. And BMX Simulator is, yes, another Codemasters game, one that I've played, and actually one that I'm probably going to play through for a video of its own, because I believe this was also ported to the NES. And I saw someone out there, I believe it was Big Old Words, play BMX Simulator on the NES. So I'm going to play this, compare it to the NES, and see what Big Old Words thinks about that. So BMX Simulator, probably going to stay in the collection. I don't know if someone out there again has got the box art for this or just needs the tape. Let me know as well, because it's not what I'm collecting at the moment, not to a huge scale anyway. And the last one that was loose, we have Ant Attack. Now, this was a classic game back in the day, and we're talking 82 I believe, no, 83 again for Ant Attack. It was 3D or early 3D on the ZX Spectrum. You've got to see it to believe it, but it was beloved and cherished, and again, loose cart, not that interested in keeping this one in the collection. So if anyone out there needs an Ant Attack cassette, we'll just reach out and we'll see what we can do for that. Now, the rest of them were all boxed for the ZX Spectrum, and the first one is the train game. Now, I don't know what this is at all. I mean, for me, the box art just screams Transport Tycoon. Now, I doubt it's going to be anything like Transport Tycoon when it comes to the ZX Spectrum, but I loved the box art in this. I did love Transport Tycoon and Railroad Tycoon back in the day, so I'm probably going to keep on to this one just purely for the box art as well. And next, we have another box one. It's Sim. Now, this one I know nothing about whatsoever. It looked from the box art on the inside, you get some screenshots with the old ZX Spectrum and Microcomputer games. The screenshots look like it's some sort of, I don't know, one-page adventure game where you move from screen to screen. I don't know if you can see that on that. I'll zoom in just to see, maybe even take some B-roll, but you'd move from screen to screen solving puzzles just to get to the next area, or maybe it's a light platformer. As I said, I haven't played it, don't know. I will give it a try. Not overly interested in holding on to this one either, so again, if anyone out there is looking for Sim on the ZX Spectrum, then just reach out and we'll see what we can do there. Now, next up we have Stay Cool, and that was really important in the 80s because everybody had to be cool, especially when you spell cool with a K. Again, it's another game that I don't know of, I've never played it. It's from Bug Bite, which were an important publisher and developer back in the day as well. And there we go, we have some screenshots in there of that one as well. I'll probably again maybe try and throw in some B-roll for that. But again, it looks like another one-page sort of platformer, puzzle platformer type game. But I have no history with it whatsoever. The box art in this one is slightly more interesting to me, so I don't know whether it will move on or stay with me. But who knows, and that's Stay Cool. Now, one that will definitely be staying with me is Lothlorien's Johnny Reb, and just look at that box art. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. And if you want a bit of Civil War, I don't know, let's call it simulation, then why not play some Johnny Reb? I never played it back in the day and I don't know what it's about, but the box art, I've got to keep it. It's as simple as that. I was so happy to find that, and again, I have to remind you, £1.33 per game here. Next up is another one I'm going to be keeping, one that I've not played, and it was an important game back in the day. It was released in, I think, all the microcomputers back then, and that is Ollie and Lisa from Firebird. Now, I do like the Firebird games. I played quite a few of them. Booty was one of my favourites. It's a pirate platformer game, puzzle platformer game, and I believe this is along the same lines. Another puzzle platformer game from Firebird. Fantastic 80s box art, and I am so looking forward to giving this a try, and this one's definitely going to be staying with me for the duration of the collection. And the last was the gem, not the hidden gem, because there's nothing hidden about this game. It's not a holy grail game as such, but it was the pick of the bunch of what I found out there yesterday, and that is Attic Attack. Now, Attic Attack, as you'll notice from the bottom corner there, is an ultimate player game, and if you know your video game history, that's the developers that became Rare. That's right, your famous Rare, your Banjo-Kazooies, your developers that have jumped from the microcomputers to the Nintendo Entertainment System to Microsoft. Unfortunately, they tend to be buried now. The best examples of their work I can recommend you to go out there and get are on the Rare Replay on the Microsoft Xbox One. But yes, Attic Attack, happy to have this in the collection. It was one I had back in the day. I don't have it well, I do now, but I didn't have it at the moment, and couldn't believe my luck at picking this up for $133. I mean, it's a great price for it. I mean, normally out there you're looking between £5 to £10 for a ZX Spectrum game, depending on condition, depending on the release. But this original small box of Attic Attack for $133, absolutely delighted to have it in the collection. And there you go. Well, except one more thing, because I couldn't leave him alone there, sitting in Relics, looking all sad-faced. I picked up Ruby the Rubik's Bear. So I really do hope you enjoyed that little trip down to Glasgow's West End and had some fun seeing what I picked up. And of course, if you want to talk about any of these games, drop that in the comments, because the interaction between you and me, well, that's what makes YouTube special. It does for me anyway. And for the cassettes there that I might not be interested in holding on to myself, if you've got any interest in them, you can reach out to me via Twitter, Facebook, or even Instagram. You can find Generation Pixel all over the place, and I'll be more than happy to talk terms for stuff that you might be wanting to pick up from here yourself. Thank you very much for watching as always, and until next time, cheerio!